Well, hey everybody, this is Don with the Vlog of Many Things, and with me is,
I'm Tom.
Ken Gaw.
and we apologize about tonight's show. Tonight's show, we were supposed to have John Scott from the AD&D group on, and John has can't get a hold of him, so I don't know if something happened up. I hope he's safe and everything's okay. I hope he just can't get access to his PM. So, John, if you catch this, click the link I sent you and we'll let you
to join in. As a quick aside, I did a video earlier today about why some channels are adverse to doing live streams. And I didn't even bring this up, all right? I didn't even bring up that sometimes, you have technical difficulties. Sometimes you have guests that don't make the show. When I've spoken to other creators that have channels that are much more range than the three of us have total, and have great viewership, they're afraid that a live stream is an uncontrolled environment where people can go off script, including themselves. And for people that actually make some kind of an income off of YouTube and Rumble and Twitter, X, whatever, that can terrify you. Don't worry, we don't really make that much off of you folks, so we're willing to jump into the deep end of the pool and not know how to swim.
And we've seen some rather famous going off script.
Oh yeah,
and stepping your foot in the cow pie. I mean, like knee deep in the cow pie. I mean, I think of Ernie Gygax Jr. talking about Tommy gunning people who made
it. Wasn't the finest? That was not his finest moment.
That was his finest moment. Yeah.
No. Oh, and by the way, as an aside, last I heard, Ernie got hospitalized last night.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So,
I hope he gets better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that man has gone to hell and back again, and I only wish him the best.
Well, he mentioned on his own Facebook page earlier today, he made a post about they're indicating now he may have to go on a heart transplant list. So his condition has gotten a lot worse. But
he had talked about that earlier about the possibility of needing a heart transplant.
Oh, yeah, like a year ago.
Yeah.
When he was really
I guess things have progressed again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, since we're on the subject of Ernie, I want to talk about one of our first topics because we're kind of like taking this and winging this. But I thought I saw some on Ernie's page yesterday, or was it? No, it was today. No, it was yesterday.
I think it was yesterday.
Yesterday, and I want to highlight the comment here real quick if we can. And I think that I'd like to address it because it's very interesting, and I'm going to show you the image of what he was talking about. Ernie said this. He says, "I'm just reminiscing about how D&D was born from Pulp Fiction and gaming up through the ages. The latest attempt to make what was an individual's fantasy world setting changes the modern sensibilities is blooming propaganda." Now, the problem I have with this is the last bit. It's blooming propaganda. Ernie has before went online and has made controversial comments, to say the least. Let me put that. I would just venture to guess that Ernie is not the best live speaker.
Now, this, by the way, this is in regards to.
I'm going to show it right here. This. I'll do it right now, real quick. This right here. Now, who is the person who created this?
Oh, you know what? I really would hate to assign this to the wrong creator. I want to say this is the Lazy DM, but it could be Slyflare. I'm not 100% sure.
Because I tried.
It is not Hasbro.
Yeah, this is not WotC content. Disclaimer. Now, I did some work digging, and I thought it was from ACK.
No, it's not. It's not from Adventure of Conquering Gang. By the way, Alex would never have this kind of artwork, and he'd have classic OSR style artwork and his stuff. He would not have two satyrs going at it. I don't know.
Point of order. I think the Lazy DM is Sly Flourish.
All right. So I don't know. I don't want to assign this to somebody who didn't write it. I don't own it, so I couldn't.
Well, to give expansion on this, I did a little research on this, and they are only showing unfairly one page, page 115. But I did find more of this. And basically, what this section of this game gets into is um, things like seduction, seduction by monsters, seduction by players versus players, players having relationships with monsters, monsters having relationships with monsters, and players having relationship with players. The big part about this, though, is the aspect of seduction and player characters having sexual relationships with other player characters. And Ernie's post kind of really got some traction. And I mean traction because a lot of people are posting on this.
Right.
And, you know, and in all fairness, a lot of people are defending this content. A lot of people are demonizing it. And you're getting that steady crew of woke 5e BS. So I thought we'd discuss it and kind of like give opinions on it because
I also find it interesting that Ernie made a big deal about this when his own sister and her husband produced D&D content and very specifically produced D&D modules for husbands and wives to game together, like on Valentine's Day type of thing.
But the thing is, okay, in all fairness to Heidi and Eric, because I have one of those modules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was actually donated by Heidi and Eric graciously for WizardCon. And I looked at the module.
I bought one.
All of them. I've got, they sent me every single one they did. I forgot the name of it, but basically it takes place around Lake Geneva. That's kind of the theme of their gaming.
Right.
And in all fairness, it's not sexualized in any way. It's just designed for a husband and wife to be able to engage each other in a fun way playing the game. So this is
it, though. That's
that?
And that's what I took from it, that it was very much what a husband and wife would.
Yeah, it's basically trying to get husband and wives to play the game and and such. And to me, this type of content there's three aspects to this to me. Okay. Number one, the content of seduction. Seduction has been part of D&D since Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, period. The succubus.
Right.
The entire idea of a female demon, the whole purpose of her was to what? Seduce the player character.
Yeah.
And so seduction in the game, and this is a game that was marketed to 13 and 14-year-old kids. Nobody seemed to have a yank about that. Now, granted, every game master and every dungeon master has their own way they do things. Would I have let's pick something generically more safe here to start off with. You have player characters in your game, and two are boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife legitimately. Sure. And they say, okay, me and my wife, Don and Tina are playing the game and with Tammy and Tom and Eric and Rach. And Eric's the DM. And Don and Tina say, you know what? We're going to go have sex tonight in the inn. My question as an outside gamer would be, what is that germane to the game?
Exactly. Well, here's the other thing too. I mean, going back to AD&D, the succubus, the dryad, right? Wasn't like the water nymph try to piss up something different before it dragged you into the water?
Many.
This wasn't seduction for the idea of, and then bing bang boom, you scored. This is seduction. This is going to kill you. Like a sea hag is going to kill you, right? Yes. It was not meant to be. Well, do you want to play romance? No. And listen, well, folks, I had a player back in my college days that wanted
my apologies. Real quick, Eric, don't mean to interrupt. I had chat off. Guys, my apologies.
No. But I had a player that wanted to seduce the barmaid and wanted to role play it. I'm like, dude, I'm not role playing this. I'm not here for you to, I don't know, have your little fantasy. Not going to name the player. He's still a good friend of mine. I still see him. But no, I don't. well, do I get the score? I go, I don't give. Do you want to? Fine. It's off screen. It's off. We're not playing it out. If we play it out in a year, maybe you got a kid. We'll worry about it in 9 months game time. I'm not concerned about it. But players today, not a lot of them, but a certain amount of them, I'm going to venture, folks, don't put me on the post when I do this. I'm going to venture that some of them are so outside the world of normal socialization, they can't ever imagine themselves being in a real romantic relationship, and they want to get their
Well,
I'm not saying it's a large number, but gaming gets awkward people. Oh God, it really.
well, gaming has always role playing gaming has always kind of attracted also people who socially are not really social,
Mm-hmm.
like in school and such. But I think when looking at the comments and reading this content and reading the content in context and in full, not just page 115,
Right.
okay, um, you know, is to me as a GM or a DM or even as a player in general, my comment would be on it is what, if you're a DM and you're playing with a bunch of responsible adults and everybody at the table is okay with this kind of stuff, then do it. It's not my game.
Right.
And as a player, if I'm uncomfortable at a table, and see, this is where this touches other subjects, such as SA and kidnapping, and to quote DMG, spiders. Yeah, I know, but the point is
No snakes.
if you're in a game or if you're getting ready to start a game and there begins to be content within that game that you are not comfortable with, you have an obligation to speak up and say, "Hey, listen, come on, this ain't." You can be tactful about it. You can talk to the DM privately, maybe some other players, and just say, "Take a break for a moment." You talk to you. But the thing is, you know, I don't believe that this is necessarily woke content, like everyone's, like, not everybody, like a lot of people are saying on that group. I
Right.
think what this game is doing is this game is introducing an aspect of gaming that, although many people might find either distasteful or not agree with, it is a reality of gaming because it's taking gaming to a different level. Not a level that I would take it to, not a level that I would like, but you know, people will be able to argue against this also who say, well, I don't like things like kidnapping or subjects like, SA. I don't like that type of stuff. So the argument that we all argued is saying, well, hey, kidnapping is part of D&D, and orcs are bad people, bad things, and orcs are evil and all that. People can also take this and go, if you're right, then why can't I be right? Because, like, you're telling me if I don't want my orcs to be bad, but your orcs are going to be, then make my orcs not bad. Okay, fine. If you don't like my content regarding monsters and players, then don't play monsters and players. Again, as a player, as a DM, this is not for me. I'll make that really finely. I'm more old school. I'll admit it, but I can't demonize content if the content is being marketed and or designed to be played by adults.
Well, I would like to know, people who say, "Well, I don't like kidnapping." Did you like the movie Taken with Liam Neeson? Did you watch that movie? I mean, it's this was a classic thing in, when I went to seminary, that they'd be talking about, like, how people will be against certain things, and I'm like, but you go to the movies, and because the movies are loaded with this thing that you're against, and I think I saw you at the movies, it was that kind of thing. So I mean, if you're sitting there and saying, well, I don't like kidnapping, it shouldn't be a part of the game, well, is it part of your other entertainment? Is a question I want to ask, because
Right. I mean,
that would be kind of hypocritical, I would think.
But the argument, my argument to you, Tom, would be, okay, you are 100% correct. But do you watch any type of movies or content that is adult themed?
Not too much.
but you occasionally do. And see, this is
Tammy and I just don't go there. We keep it's mostly PG-13 in this household. We just don't do.
Oh, and that's fine then, because again, it falls right under one thing, and that is this is not your type of content. Like it's not mine.
Right.
But I think, like Edward Kopp says here, safety note, this adventure incorporates mature themes, unsettling content, et cetera, et cetera. See, the only thing that I lack on this book is I would like to actually see a PDF of this to see if there is a warning in this type of book, because that's the whole purpose of the TTGRA that we're trying to get up and running, is because of things like this, purchasers, like parents especially, can know that the content that they're buying is okay for their kids. And, I that's why I'm really big on the Tabletop Game Rating Authority thing that we're trying to get off the ground, just because of content like this. Because like you, Tom, and like me, I wouldn't want my 13-year-old to have this game manual. I'm sorry, I wouldn't.
Well, who's probably going to value that more is teachers and paraprofessionals who happen to be running the D&D club at their school.
Absolutely.
Right. It's because they're ordering materials, and so having a warning on it that they can look at and go, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have this for middle schoolers.
Absolutely. And again, there's a lot of people that think this should be banned. They're actually making that comment that there's no reason this should be in gaming. And again, the comment that Ernie made, though, at the very end says, change it to modern sensibilities. It's blooming propaganda. I don't believe it's propaganda.
No.
He's trying to politicize something here. And that's exactly
he's just being outraged to be outraged.
Yeah. This isn't, a lot of people in his comment thread, though, are trying to politicize this. Because what they're trying to do is, and several comments were made, well, this is all liberal-induced stuff. One guy made the comment that, does the game maker of this, are they trans? And all this other nonsense. And it's like, my argument was this, and I'm just going to say this out loud because I think it's a valid argument. And that is, anybody who's watching this that's outraged at this content, my question is this: are you friends with Avenger Satanis? Have you purchased any Avenger Satanis' materials? Because you talk about fringe sexual content. His publishing company,
Corvallis, I think. Yeah.
Corvallis. Yeah, he really specializes in this type of really fringe, off-the-wall stuff. And I like the guy. I think he's a talented game designer. His games are not for me.
Right.
But the thing is I see a whole bunch of hypocrites in there because I started going to their pages and seeing if they were friends with them, and many of them are. And I'm like going, wait a minute here. This is all woke, 5e, modern, designed by, the trans community. One guy made a comment that this is the trans community attempting to indoctrinate kids, and that person was friends with Venger. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, why don't we sit there and start pulling back our moral wet blanket that we're trying to cover our head with and face a few things here?
Well, I can tell you that I had a submission as a magazine editor for Star Frontiers fanzines where the whole submission was like about getting it on with the barmaid, and you were like creating an endurance score and so I asked the guy, I says, do you actually play this at your table? He goes, and he came back with yes all the time, and I'm like, you're full of crap. you ain't playing this all the time.
He actually might. Because
in his mother's house,
in his mother's basement, Rach, in his mother's basement.
Mother's basement with Harvey the Rabbit.
Yeah, with the monster manual that is literally stuck on the succubus page. All right. So now, and listen.
Well, there goes the demonetization of 3 cents we're making off this video.
I spoke in the vaguest of times. I made sure, but. Here's the thing, okay? Nobody is going if you look at a cover of Venger's stuff, you pretty much know the content that's going to be in it. And if you've ever read anything from Venger, it's not a surprise. I think that the juxtaposition is that this is being presented as a regular RPG supplemental material from a well-known third-party publisher for 5e, and then it's talking about sexualization. Now, I'm in my 50s, folks. Not quite 60. I'm working on it. I'll get there at some point. All right? And some people may call me a prude. I don't, but some people may. But there are certain things that I don't believe are part of a traditional fantasy. When I say fantasy, I'm not saying sexual fantasy. An RPG fantasy session, you're going to get in those violence, blood, gore, death, killing, poison, traps, right? You don't usually have incidents of sexual gratification. If your game session requires that, you're amongst consenting adults, you're probably not playing a traditional RPG in a traditional manner.
Well, there's also a lot of role-playing games out there that are actually geared up for erotica,
which is fine, But I personally, for me and my whatever sensibilities, I don't want my peanut butter and chocolate being mixed. I'm not a fan of that. Okay, I don't need my violence gratification, my murder hoboing being combined with 14-year-old self-gratification in the bathroom. I'm just saying they don't mix, in my opinion.
Honestly, though, wouldn't you say that average D&D party, they're murder hoboing their way through a dungeon, and they get to a room, and then the dungeon master says, "This beautiful woman is trying to come on to you." I would say that the average murder hobo is going to be roll for initiative. No way.
Yeah, no, I'm not even going to say what. I'll be like, I surprised her, right? Great, I lop her head off because I'm not. No, first off,
you know that doesn't end well.
You
anyway,
say most channels are separate.
Yeah, that is. It's too good to be true. Wow, there's a treasure chest overflowing with gold. Do you think it's a mimic? Do you think if there's a beautiful woman, just come hither here, Ernie? No, I can tell you, it ain't what it seems to be.
But the thing is, in all fairness to this game, I can tell you right now that 99% of the people commenting on that thread didn't even read the page. All they did is got outraged because they were told by Ernie, and this is the reason why I want to show you this. Consent, right here. Wait, didn't we already talk about this? What's that?
It's not once but twice.
Yes.
On the same page, yes.
Yep. And it says, yes, we did, but consent is such an important part of this topic that talking about it once is not or isn't enough. This time, though, we're talking about player consent, because even for a romancing the monster story that involves appropriate consent within the narrative, it's important to recognize that this might not be the type of story all players want to engage in. And they go on. And so they're even within this saying, hey, wait a minute here. You know, this isn't just, we're not advocating for you to add this arbitrarily. You must have, and you should have, comfortable consent among all players at hand. So really, I think that all the players that are sitting there jumping on this bone, you know, on that page need to sit there and just, you know, excuse me, I am trying to undo it. Okay, we'll figure this out. Hold on a minute. Oh, we just go ahead and do this.
This is those technical difficulties that Eric was mentioning.
Yeah. So.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, this works out really well, don't it, guys? Jeez.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm about ready just to say the hell with this.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a minute. Let's try to kick this out of here. I have never role played this in 40 years. And to be honest, we never, ever, ever encountered a succubus. Really? You never use that. You never use that monster as a DM.
I've never used it. I never remember my other DMs using it because we were a small group and we all just rotated being DM. Nobody ever used it. Nobody was ever like, ooh, we got, it's a 14-year-old boy like, oh, we got to have a succubus. No, we just never.
I find it interesting because it was such a prominent monster. It was even in the monster cards that they put out.
I never had the monster cards.
Okay.
And honestly, do you remember succubus ever showing up in any of those early modules that TSR put out back in the day? I don't.
Not the modules. I don't remember her in the modules, but it was a demon that that was used a few times in my games because it was just an interesting way of getting players to fall for their stupidity.
Right. It's to lower your guard. And by the way, if any player in an OSR campaign was willing to fall for that, especially nowadays, you're out of your mind. Okay, so it's apparently Sly. Yeah, it's Sly Flourish. I'm not sure which book it's in because Sly has so many damn books out, and I can't find a timeline for when they get released. But listen, this for him is awesome because the Anger Brigade, whether it's from the left or from the right, sells books. It sells content. You got people talking about it. And you're going to have angry people buying it just so they can tear it apart and quote from it accurately. So for him, this is a win-win.
Well, I have a recommendation on this whole sexual seduction role-playing. Traveler had a character creation game. You did it by yourself. And you just, you rolled the character and you decided when you were going to have him, step out of, and because every session, every round, there was a chance he could die in his career. Just make it a solo game and play it with your character, but
But why make it a solo game? This is the whole thing. It's all about consent. I mean, right. I'm not advocating if I first of all, disclaimer, my youngest is 18. So I don't have young ones or teenagers running around anymore. But if I had a table full of my daughter was 14 and she had a bunch of 14-year-olds over, I would not allow this content in the game. Right. And if I heard them playing this content, the game would be over forthwith. But if you have a group of consenting adults, then do it. Just like Arkham Horror has elements of erotica in it. Ravenloft. I mean, look at the covers of Ravenloft. One of the most famous covers of Ravenloft is what? Dracula doing what? Carrying the woman that barely has a lacy dress on out.
Right. You can infer what you want from what's gonna happen in the next 90 seconds. Well, you can pretty much infer that. The thing is, and is that generally speaking, for most of us, I'm speaking for myself, but I think I'm speaking for most of us, these scenes happen off screen, right? Even the romancing part, we don't role play it. It again, I refuse to because just the thought of role playing this in my 20s was so awkward that I was like, why would I want to? Ew. And as an adult, I laugh at you. You want me to role play that with you?
Well, we're gonna go ahead. See you and Joe the lawyer role play.
We're gonna go ahead a year. You've got syphilis and herpes. Congratulations, enjoy.
Well, that's exactly that's the whole thing. It's sort of like in my game. I have used barmaids before in my games to either lure a player to take a specific item from them because I want to get an item away from them. Now, I don't tell them lure them up to a room. I lure them away from the player characters with the barmaid flirting at them. Because if you have an idiot willing to fall for that crap in a game, they deserve to lose whatever they're going to lose.
Right.
But I've also used barmaids to flirt with them to say, would you like to go out to the alley with me? Yes, there's innuendo there, but what's the purpose of it? Because she's hired by the local thieves guild to lure rich travelers out to the back alley, and then they're attacked by the the Thieves Guild, and what happens? They risk losing their gold or their whatever.
Right.
So yes, I have used the barmaid like that, but I think that is used, although the premise might be construed by some as sexual. It is a part of the game that I think is a logical aspect when you're playing a fantasy role playing game.
Oh,
And but again, we go right back down to the whole point of there's erotica all over the place in D&D. I mean, I can go through and I can just cherry pick lots of it. This gets more into straight up sexual intercourse
Yeah.
and the descriptions of it. And again, if that's what you again, keyword here or key two words, consenting adults. If you with your group of consenting adults wants to play this type of game, then you know what? Then knock yourself out. But I think I would tap out at the table and say, "Tell you what, guys,
I
this is
would.
where we're going with it."
I would too. And listen, and I'm going to make an observation. As the American culture, especially, but my character consents, but I don't. I'm an American, so Western culture, certain cultures in the Western culture, maybe not as much, but I'm more comfortable role-playing violent acts out than I ever will be role-playing sexual activity.
Absolutely,
All right?
me too.
All right? So that is why there's so much pushback on this. Now, could people say, well, we'd be a much better society if people were more apt to role-play sexual activity out, whatever. But that's not the game. That is an act of procreation, and if you can do it for real, I think you'd much rather do it for real than not pretend you're doing it in a game. Yeah. Therein lies the difference. You should not, my humble opinion, have to include sexual activities in an RPG, because if you feel that need, I can almost guarantee you're not fulfilling that need in real life.
Yep. Agreed. I was going to say, I'm married. I get plenty. I don't need to do this.
But the thing is, that's where again we talk about consenting adults. But Thaddeus says something very interesting here, and I'm actually going to pull the last comment. He says it's even funnier if you've already told everyone at the table there's no sexual role play at the table. I have never had in my life of D&D 7 years of it had to tell the table there'll be no sexual role play tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Never have I had to do that. And I'll be honest with you, if I saw two characters going down that road, I would break the game off for a moment and I'd have a discussion at the table. Say, listen, guys, we're not going to go down these roads because it's just not appropriate.
I could allow it if it was a fade to black. My character wants to marry this other character. All right, so we have a wedding, and goblins, gate crash the wedding, and so the goblins are dealt with. You have the speaking of the vows, probably the bishop out of Princess Bride doing it, and then it's going to be a fade to black. We're not going to be doing the honeymoon. And all right, you come back from the thing, you're married now, and let's go on with the adventure.
Oh, I'll tell you one thing that I, as a DM, real quick, Victory Lane Exotics Bill, thanks for tuning in our channel. I think this is the first time you've been here. Says, I had a game with my wife and then 16-year-old stepdaughter, and her and the wife fell in love with an NPC goblin and wanted him to have a girlfriend. I refused to roleplay that. Exactly. You can say no. But there's something that's really interesting here to me, and that is, if I have two-player characters and they say, we want to be boyfriend, girlfriend in their group because we're boyfriend, girlfriend in real life, so we want to be boyfriend, girlfriend as players, I take out my knife and I'm sharpening it and going, oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Because I will use that against them as a DM to their bane. Because you guys have a romantic attachment in game. Awesome. Let's play that. Guaranteed, after one session with me, you won't want to play that again.
Right, because that's just a liability.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Tom, going back to your situation, I as the GM, if you're going to role play, if that's going to happen, Well, this is medieval society, right? In fantasy society, I'm going to tell you, some noble is going to declare, was it prima nocta?
Prima nocta. Prima nocta. First night.
First night rights. And then my players will never want to role play that shit again. All right? Because it's not, listen, if that's part of your story, and listen, it's part of fiction, right? I've been watching Rogue Heroes, SAS Rogue Heroes. We just watched the first season. Great. And there's a lot of stuff. If I was doing World War II RPG stuff, that I could pull, lock, stock, and barrel into an RPG session. I'm not going to pull the romantic sessions out because those are plot devices that aren't needed for an RPG session. That's my saying.
Well, Thaddeus makes a comment. He says, unfortunately, when I was in the military, I had to make the statement. Thaddeus, it depends what you play with in the military. I can actually see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I get it. What does Shark say here? Shark says, yeah, there's not a lot of sexual content going on at your tables. Get lots of women, gays, pierce blue-haired freaks. I love you. I'm going to say something about here, Shark. I get it, okay? But, one thing that we're not going to tolerate on this video is we're not going to have you tolerating and attacking people like that. That's not necessary, okay? So do me a favor, all right? I get it. I get your opinions and everything, but let's keep it a little bit more nicer, please, in the comment section. Science Smile says, good to be king. So, and as DM, you are king.
I also keep going back to what was it that drew me to Dungeons and Dragons when that Christmas when I opened up the box and I was like, I can live out Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. It was the adventure, it was the exploration. It was not the sex. There's no sex in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. It's all fade to black, and that Faramir falls in love with so and so, but that's all off page. That's off camera, and none of that was what made me interested in D&D. It was an adventure game, and I was excited to vicariously live out these adventures. That's what drew me to D&D, and this has no draw for me. This absolutely has no draw.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, listen, I find it interesting that go back to earlier WotC stuff. Go back to the days around the D20 license. They put out a book of Vile Darkness that you had to unwrap the wrapper of to even get to the content from Wizards of the Coast. Okay?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Eric, Science Smile says, sorry, it's a quote from Robin Hood Men in Tights in relation to Prima Nocta. No, actually, Science Smile, Prima Nocta was English. It was a legitimate English right of lords of their land.
Yes.
That's documented in English history. They used to pull it on the Scots all the time.
It also made an appearance in Braveheart.
Did it?
I believe, yeah. Actually, according to was it Gemini? Is that the AI on Google? Edward I of England is said to have enforced Prima Nocta in an attempt to breed the Scots out. He sent English lords to occupy Scottish castles and gave them the right to have
that was Longshanks.
Yep, with any Scottish bride on her wedding night.
Yes.
So,
well, the thing is Shark then makes another comment that I do agree. He says, struggle, war, death, heroes, and courage is what my game tables are about. Yes, and Shark, that's what attracted me to D&D as a 10-year-old. It was like, I can be this heroic warrior, I can cast spells. And this is what I argued before about the core thing of what made D&D so popular, I think, is you could be anything you wanted to be.
Well, but listen, I think you hit the nail on the head. You just said a bad word. You could be the hero. When to be the hero, right? To be the hero in an RPG, there has to be good and bad. And D&D, as we played it, as it was written, you had good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
D&D 2014 had good and bad. D&D 2024 has shades of gray and a little bit of nothing. You can't assume that orcs are evil. You can't assume that the succubus is evil. There's no. So you can't assume evil then how are you going to be a hero? Your whole career is indecisiveness. To be a hero, you
Oh,
got to be
absolutely.
indecisive. And you lost that in D&D 2024. And I think you literally, Don, hit that nail on the head, and it should spark across the community, because what D&D 2024 lacks, and we're seeing it in these recent publications that are supporting it, is heroism. Okay, and they've listen, when Don was talking about Tolkien, right? In Tolkien, the heroes were the halflings, the humans, the dwarves, the elves, and they all had different characteristics. They all had the dwarves were stout and strong and could take a lot of damage because they were dwarves. Elves were great fighters and bowmen and magic users. Halflings could just have this force of will. Now, in 2024, what you choose as a whatever they call it, it's no longer races. Whatever your heritage, whatever you choose as your heritage, is just it's a tablecloth. Okay, it is trappings. It has no effect. They've taken away that heroism from the game, and I think that's going to be the downfall of D&D. I really do, and this, by the way, folks, this is a conversation that we probably never planned on having.
Yeah.
But this is why I love live streams, because you go in these directions thanks to people in the chat. And so the issue that we're looking at is that D&D 2024 or D&D Forever or whatever they're going to call it isn't about being the hero. Okay? In 2024, I'm not even sure what the point is, because you can't be, I'm the paladin and I'm going to save the world, because, well, I don't know who's harming the world. You know, maybe the elves are, maybe that elf is working with that orc and that dwargor, and that halfling is the evil lord, because you can't judge everybody individually. There's no good, there's no evil. And that, to me, is so vanilla that you've taken away the ability for players to play heroes. And that's why they're filling up that emptiness with romance, because you've taken away the heroism. If I can't be a hero, at least let me get laid. Well, I don't know.
True.
Maybe that has.
Well, you know what? And I guess maybe on that point, Tom?
Well, I was going to say, building off of what Eric said about you know, orcs aren't bad, goblins aren't bad. I was going to bring up, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but weren't you put in Facebook jail a few years ago for saying that I think the quote was, goblins are the worst?
Yeah, I said something in jokingly in Facebook about goblins being bad, or goblins are horrible, or something like that, or bad, and they literally put me in Facebook jail over it, saying that I was attacking
a fantasy race.
Yeah.
You were a fantasy race for saying they're bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, now we need Matt Jackson coming in to talk about gnomes. Man.
Yeah. Well, another thing we thought we'd talk about tonight, since might as well get into a few other fun stuff, is for those of you who like Star Frontiers, there is a Star Frontiers page. We're going to switch gears here. There's a Star Frontiers page out there called, what is it called, Tom?
Alive and Well.
Star Frontiers Alive and Well. And there are a core group of individuals who believe that Star Frontiers, you can publish fan-based products under the OGL. And I went in there and I sinned, and I said, no, you cannot. And I know this because I had a Zoom meeting with WotC's licensing last week with my attorney, because we want to license product with them. And Star Frontiers was brought up. And so then the argument was, well, we can go ahead and do it under fan license, and or this person, I'm not going to name them, indicated that they were in contact about having a special OGL written for Star Frontiers. Okay, first of all, I'm just going to say it like this. No, they are not in contact with WotC about that.
No, I'm getting a headache here. My head's about to explode.
The OGL's dead.
Listen, this is
Hang on for the rant. Attention all. Hang on for the rant.
you got me going here. Okay, so
First, real quick, Eric.
Yeah.
Then I'll let you loose.
oh man, you ready? I'm gearing. I've got.
I got the chain around Eric's neck. I'm tightening it, trying to get him to hold off right now for a second.
Let Eric go.
Real quick, just to clarify a couple small quick things. Number one, you cannot produce any type of Star Frontiers based content under the fan use license if you're going to charge for it. And I don't care if you say pay what you want to. It's still considered, if you're making 1 cent off of it, you're in violation of their fan use policy for Star Frontiers. Period. End of story. Now, I have unleashed the Kraken. The door has been opened.
All right, so I'm gonna give the short history lesson here. When WotC when they gave us the OGL, they gave us the SRD with it, and at the time the D20 system license. Now, the D20 system license could be revoked, and it got revoked because of certain material that WotC was like, holy shit, somebody could publish this and then put our system license on it? Well, oh my God. And by the way, it happened to be a book about sexual deeds. So that had to get removed. We canceled the D20 license, but they couldn't cancel the OGL. And the OGL and the SRD were linked. Now the SRD, let me just
clarify the difference between the two, please.
Right. SRD stands for System Resource Document. The OGL is an open game license. The open game license refers to various SRDs, System Resource Documents. First one was 3.0, then it was 3.0A, then there was a future, then there was a modern, and then other companies released stuff under it. But here's the thing. WotC has released an SRD under the OGL
Yes.
for D&D 3.0,
Yes.
D&D Modern, or D20 Modern, and I believe they covered the future stuff under that, some of it.
Some of it, yeah.
And then they came out with 5e. We're skipping 4e. They came out with 5e, and with 5e, people were going, where's my OGL? And you know what WotC said? You really don't want an OGL. You think you want an OGL. You think you want an SRD. You cheap fucks. What you want is basic rules. Because you just want to play for free. So we're going to put together basic rules that you can use to play D&D for free. And no, you can't use them to publish your own work. No, it's not an open game license. No, it's not an SRD. And you know what? People would not shut up and kept on asking, where's our SRD for 5e? And finally they relented. Okay. So we've set the plate. Now, do you notice at any point I never mentioned Star Frontiers? Mm-hmm. Now, there's a couple of reasons, but the two obvious ones I'm going to point out are Star Frontiers is not a D20 D&D style game.
That's right.
It's a percentile game. And WotC has never released an OGL for it. Now, if you're one of those conspiracy confused types, maybe you're going, yeah, but Chaosium released basic fantasy role-playing under an SRD, and that's a percentile system. So therefore, no. All due respect to those people who are trying to mix their apples with somebody else's nuts, go fuck yourself. You're not even in the right realm. Now, Star Frontiers, as John and Tom are mentioning, has, and I'm going to say has, because we don't know what the future holds, because if you shit in WotC's water for too long into their pool, they're not going to keep on scooping your shit out. They're just going to close the pool. They have a fan license, which allows you to publish work at no profit.
You can make blogs talking about it and doing and such.
Right.
It follows all that stuff.
There were fan magazines put out. But the moment you go, arms for the poor, arms for the poor, you violated that fan license. So anybody who thinks that they understand this better than we've just explained it, and we've explained it so those that have IQs that would normally have been referred to as words we no longer say on video can understand it. Like people might have like sued somebody. So you can understand what the OGL covers. WotC has not released an OGL for
Star
Starfront.
Frontiers. But also, there's also another aspect of this because I talked to the individual on hand, okay, on video. I got in a video conversation with him. And the way that they felt that they could work around this is that they could sell printed, they could give away printed copies if you gave a donation. You're not buying the printed copy. You're donating to the people. Sorry, WotC knows all about that game and everything. And what was said to me on Zoom was very succinct when I said, was there anything that can be done, or my attorney, anything that can be done to allow maybe some type of license or sub-license for Star Frontiers? And there is absolutely zero plans to have and or allow any type of license for any legacy product. Period. End of story. Period. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
That was said. So why then the question was raised to me by this individual. Then why they have it on DriveThruRPG to maintain their trademarks?
Right. And listen, they're making money off it and there's an interest in it. And by the way, the moment anybody talks about WotC putting something that isn't currently under the open game license, I know they're talking shit. Yep. And why is that? Because WotC tried to cancel the open game license. WotC went so far as to say any licenses, any SRDs we do going into the future are going to be under Creative Commons. Mm-hmm. So if you, Mr. I don't know what you're talking about, believe that WotC is going to put a legacy product under the OGL because, you know, if wishes were fishes, it sounds good to you. You're delusional, and I mean that with all due respect.
Well, but also, you know, in all fairness, very early on when we first reached out to them, there was confusion because, you know, talked to a trademark attorney. A trademark attorney first said, well, the problem is I know what the SRD is. I've read it. I know what the OGL is.
Uh-huh.
But the problem with these licenses is they're anamorphic specific. And I asked him what that meant. And he said, basically, in legalese, what that means is that they're not really specifying it's for Dungeons and Dragons only. It's the way they word it. So early on, the trademark attorney was like, this is really ambiguous. You might be able to do it. Very early on, when in contact with Wizards of the Coast licensing and IP people, they even were like, we'll look into this. Mm-hmm. There was like some heavy, like, interesting stuff. And then all of a sudden.
Well, but here's the thing. If you look at the open game license, it refers to, and this is remember, the open game license that Wizards initially put out has been used by other companies. Because the license itself is open. So other companies have used it. Mongoose released Mongoose RuneQuest under it.
Yep.
They released Mongoose Traveler under it. So that's how other products all of a sudden had SRDs. But WotC never said, hey, Star Frontiers, come on down. We're releasing you under it. They never made an SRD for Star Frontiers. Yeah. Now, Star Frontiers, the trademark, it has a history. It has a history of a certain, what was it, a purple or blue-haired individual the company behind the Fate RPG, Evil Hat, made an attempt to snag the Star Frontiers license, but even or the trademark. But even when they went for the trademark, they didn't go for the IP and they didn't go for the system because that stuff was not owned. It just appeared that the Star
because they were smart enough, at least in their limited ability, to
Yeah.
sit there and know that, because they probably talked to an attorney about it.
Yeah. They grabbed
You
the
know?
trademark, did a trademark squat, and they backed off when they got C&D'd.
Yeah, smartly so.
Unfortunately, well, part of the Evil Hat thing, what happened is suddenly all of the old content, except for the 2001 and 2010 modules that were licensed, that were printed under license for Star Frontiers, all the old content was put on drive-through. And we were all like, hallelujah, I can get a hard copy of the rules now because you can. And so we were all excited and it was great. But then all of a sudden, WotC shut everything down. And we actually had to shut down the fan magazine for a year because of Evil Hat. And I was like, damn it. I do enjoy my hardcover book. But
Yep, I get it. Hey, real quick, Eric, is this the Discord gentleman?
Yes.
Hey, Edward, you can go ahead and drop me an email. Okay, the email you're sending to, we're having some issues with it. We're getting email from Gmail, but places like AT&T and some other service providers, for some reason, they have us blacklisted. So, if you could do me a favor and drop an email to basically, it would just go ahead and send it to Wizard Tower Games LLC. I'll make the email in here. You can send me an email and I'll be able to get your questions answered. Send me an email to right there, Edward, and I'll respond to you regarding WizardCon. Happy to do it. So, and Victory Lane Exotics says, no Hasbro and WotC, just trying to mitigate liability. I'm new and I know that there's D&D official than third party. Yes, see, that's the thing about this. And this was the big argument with new TSR. And this is just a fact. Take all the insults out of it. Buying a trademark, even if you are managed to buy the trademark, it doesn't give you rights to the IP. It would be like me buying a trademark to Coca-Cola because they let it lapse and say, okay, you owe me the formula.
Oh, damn.
I mean, but it's the same thing because I get it. I get people are fans of stuff. I love Gamma World. Tom loves Star Frontiers. We both like the early sci-fi. But the thing is there comes a time as a creator, and this individual's putting a lot of Star Frontiers based content, and I see they're offering printed copies, and my warning will happen. They are going to get a C&D. They are going to get a C&D. I guarantee it, because certain names were invoked in our video, even among a couple other creators, and they're aware of this stuff. New TSR's lawsuit that they dumped $1 million in flat. If that doesn't tell you a company is willing to drop $1 million, and all that other company had to do that they sued is say, we will stop selling, we'll drop everything, and they're willing to take that hit and say, okay, we're happy now, that better scare the shit out of anybody contemplating using their IP without their permission.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like me, Eric, and Tom. I'm going to talk about something quick. We're getting ready. We want to put out a Blades and Arcana sci-fi version. We are staying away from a Star Frontiers compatible version. Why? Because we don't want to be sued. I don't want a C&D, Well,
we wanted all of the Blades and Arcana lines to be compatible.
Absolutely. But we also talked about making a cross-compatible version. And the problem with you running into stuff like that is when you start doing things like that and you start touching other systems, you're dealing with, like I said before, a dragon who's sleeping. And like I told Justin and Michael in the very early on, you're going to walk into a cave and smack the dragon in the nose of the sword, and it's going to wake up pissed. And I got laughed at. Well, here we are $1 million later, and God knows what they've spent and all the turmoil and everything. And You know,
Well,
just
yeah,
it
he's
ain't
selling
worth it, man.
his Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum. He's liquidating property in
Yeah,
North Carolina.
the
He
the
appears to
ram
go through a divorce.
yeah the ramifications of his actions are just it's like a brick in the middle of a small pond, a big boulder. Just think of the waves it's created.
Huh?
So it's a cautionary tale. I always said new TSR is going to end up being a cautionary tale in gaming, and also as game creators what not to do.
Yeah.
So anyone out there thinking about buying a trademark and thinking because you bought the trademark you own the IP, you might want to talk to a trademark attorney because I can tell you haven't yet. If that's what you're thinking.
There's a miniatures manufacturer that made a little for miniatures for gaming for sci-fi ship to ship combat. I'm not going to say who. But they actually made knockoffs of the X-Wing fighter and the Y-Wing fighter.
Mhm.
And on their website, you have to be in the know because there's no pictures of the products. You have to be in the know and you have to order the right product. And I have some nice little.
Well, regarding that, interestingly enough, I deal a lot in movie prop making. And I know a lot of third party, they call them garage makers. And what garage makers are in model building and display models, 2.5 foot long X Wings and Y Wings, I make those.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kits that are illegal to purchase, the people who make these things. But what they call them garage kits. And now this is the reason why Disney and George Lucas allowed it. George Lucas in an interview was asked, don't you know about these people making these models and everything? And he goes, absolutely. And he goes, you're not going to shut them down? He goes, why? They're doing the best job for us for advertising Star Wars and helping our genre of our movie and the popularity. Now, Disney, the mouse, since they took over, it's like I'm not going to name them online. There's a very popular lightsaber maker online. I know the owner personally. I used to do model making for him because he used to sell models for Star Wars. And all of his stuff is lightsaber Star Wars, but you don't call it the Darth Vader lightsaber. It's the Darth Lord. And it's just like with X-Wings. It's not called the X-Wing fighter. It's called the X fighter. The Y-Wing is not the Y-Wing bomber. Yeah. It's the Y bomber. And it's kind of like how you word it sometimes.
Well, they have recast these two fighters as very specific fighters within one of their factions. I think it was the Anglican that came out of Great Britain faction in space, and they also have the Colonial Viper, aka of
Thunderfighter from Buck Rogers.
No, the Colonial Viper from Battlestar.
Oh, from Battlestar Galactica, gotcha.
And I happened to order that one, and I was like, "Oh, these are so cool!" And they were so tiny, though. But
you know what the problem with that is that what they eventually will end up doing is if they get on the radar of Disney and Disney, there's an old saying. I'll tell you right now in the prop making community that I'm very deeply involved with. There's a saying: "Don't f with the mouse," because everybody who's f with the mouse, they'll make what WotC did. Because Disney has a policy. Disney has a stated policy. They say this in interviews that once we start to go after you, there will be only one outcome: you will be bankrupt. We will take everything you own as a lesson. And they have done that repeatedly to prop makers. And we're talking about guys who just make like a resin X-Wing fighter in their garage, and they get too big. They start advertising as the X-Wing. It pisses Disney off, and they end up having Disney go after them. So nobody messes with a mouse. You get a C&D from the mouse. Thank God I got a C&D and not a lawsuit paperwork in the mail, because sometimes they bypass the C&D because you're actively in commerce and go right after you. So is what it is. But Victory Lane, the movie prop stuff is crazy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And
so
you just finished a Han Solo and Carbonite, did you not?
Full-size Han Solo and Carbonite, and I delivered to Connecticut last weekend. And theoretically, again, that prop is not a licensed prop. Sideshow Collectibles makes that prop. But the thing is I don't have it on a website. My prop making is largely by word of mouth, and where I get my side panels they're the actual Volvo side panels. So I'm not buying anything illegal. I mean, they're Volvo dashboard panels. And then the middle Han Solo is made by an individual. I'm not going to get to who they are, but theoretically, is that a violation of Disney's IP? Yes, it is. But would I, if I got a C&D that said never make another one, would I say F you to Disney? No, I'd follow. I'd say, much is going to suck. I'm going to stop doing it. So
Yeah, or you're just hand making something and selling it on the side. I mean,
it's still considered that, but the thing is, what you're making is not a licensed prop. It's not licensed. If I went out, like I can buy Star Wars figures and sell those all day long. Sure, I can second party sell them. But if I make my own little Star Wars figures, my molds and everything, I put them all together and say, these are things, there's where you're overstepping the line. Yeah. So is what it is. But well, everybody, it is
Star Rovers miniatures. It was a sculptor who was he saw Star Wars and was blown away by it, and he started sculpting miniatures and selling them, and he got C&D'd, and so then they just they changed them a little bit, and they added ears to Chewbacca and then gave him a different name, and
and they're lucky that they still didn't continue with the lawsuit against them.
And they sold them as Star Rovers. So if you know what you're doing and you can collect the pre C&D stuff, then you got something. But it gets expensive.
Yeah.
So, well, everybody, we've learned so much tonight on tonight's impromptu show. So, it is 9:09. We like to keep it about an hour. Tom, Eric, thank you for tuning in, being part of the show.
Definitely.
Everybody in chat, thank you very much. Everybody had a really active chat session this time.
We hope John Scott gets better.
Yeah, we hope Ernie Gygax gets better. Don't agree with a lot what Ernie has said, but I really hope that his heart gets healing and he gets back on his feet.
We don't wish ill on anybody.
Oh no. And he has
maybe one or two people.
Yeah, maybe I guess I could say at least two people, but the thing is and so again, wish everybody good luck, enjoy the weekend. We have Paige coming up starting Wednesday night is when the cheesesteaks begin flying.
Well, I think it's Thursday night. Thursday
night the Paige cheesesteaks fly.
Cheesesteaks fly Thursday night.
You guys have fun.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll be cheesesteaking.
Alrighty, guys. Everybody, good gaming, okay? And we will see you in